Hello, you have a prepaid call from
Keith Jesperson,
Bruce Davis,
Patton Clark, Robert Barno.
What's your friend?
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Lighter Side of Serial Killers. I'm your host, Keith Rovere. Today, we are going to be talking to Paul Durousseau, nicknamed the Jacksonville Strangler. We're going to be talking to him from a Florida correctional facility. He was on death row. They commuted it to life without parole, or a life sentence, as they say. And maybe, because there's a lot of shady things that happened in his trial, maybe even shortened sentence after that. Maybe even completely set free. So we're going to be talking to him about his case, some of the wonky things that happened in his trial, some of the evidence that was allowed in, the evidence that wasn't allowed in. It's very interesting to say the least. And without further ado, why don't we just jump right into it? Here is Paul Durousseau. So how are you?
Been all right. Just trying to get through the day.
I'm sure. Definitely sure. Well, I appreciate you calling in. No doubt about it. Now, like last week, we were trying to do it last week when you said you went on the lockdown. What was the lockdown all about?
Well, really, actually, we don't know. It's inmate.com, what we call it, where information goes around, and it's totally something different than what it was actually to be. So, really, I really don't know. Well, the rumor was that somebody got on the phone or the email and said that an officer gave them a gun and bullets, and they locked the whole situation down, so they had to search.
Oh, wow. That's definitely wild. I just had somebody on the podcast last week. He's in a Panamanian prison, and they really have guns there. Okay. I mean, there's inmate shootings constantly. It's a whole different world in a Panamanian prison. I think La Jolla is the name of it, where you can get anything you want. I mean, there's all kind of weapons you can get, obviously from the guards themselves, but everybody thinks they have I'm sure we've talked about it, kind of a dangerous prison that you're at, but in Panamanian prison, it's like, there's a lot more to worry about than the guards. When inmates are armed themselves, it's absolutely wild for sure. And yet, as far as your prison, what's that?
I'm pretty sure this is their prison makes the U.S. prison look like Boy Scouts.
Yeah. I mean, what's it like at your prison there? I mean, how dangerous is a prison at your facility? Is it? Is that somewhere you feel safe, or is you always kind of have eyes on the back of your head, so to speak?
Well, when I came into the prison system, because this is my first bid being down, so I was what they call green. I was didn't fit in, or how would you say? Well. Old man once told me that if you see things that don't apply to you, mind your business. And so I took that and I ran with it. Mind my business. If it didn't apply to me or nobody was talking to me, I just kept going and didn't look that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody needs help, I'm first aid. I'm going to do something. I can't let you just sit there and die in front of me. So.
Mm-hmm. Is it kind of place? I hear two different stories sometimes, depending what facility they're at. And I've talked to people around the country where some people say it's safer to be a part of something, or have somebody have people fear you, or maybe do something you're not proud of to kind of get some respect or join a gang. And a lot of other people say kind of what you're saying. It's better to stay by yourself. Stay away from it. Don't gamble. Don't get involved in cards, and don't join nothing. Just kind of be by yourself. What's kind of the safer bet?
Well, I mean that is true. What I have seen guys join gangs because they want protection, or you got some guys stay to themselves. to me, I've seen it all. I've seen gang fights, stabbing. It's more drugs than anything. And 9 times out of 10 that somebody that got stabbed is because they owe money because of drugs, or somebody put a hit out on them. And
Wow.
when I first got, like when I was on death row, and when I got off death row, and my whole eyes just opened up to a whole new world, and all these gangs, and coming from, Los Angeles, California, I've seen it all. And then to actually be away from there to see gangs, gangs in Florida, and you see them, I said, oh, wow. And going to lockdown, well, not lockdown, we was going for count, and everybody had to go to their cell. And as I'm going to my cell, and I'm looking over the rail, and you see 2 guys chasing this one guy, and he tripped and fell on the floor, and they just hit him, and then next thing you know, I see him stab the dude in the back. I said, oh, is that?
Wow.
I looked to the guy and said, you see that? He said, man, I'm looking at the same thing you looking at. So, it was
that's
just
wild.
eye-opening to actually be around this and see it for myself. Because you hear it, but you just don't see it. But I've seen it. And I've seen a lot since having been converted to a life sentence. I've seen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, what was the difference between, like to kind of describe a day? I mean, I'm sure days are somewhat similar. When you were at, say, death row,
Correct.
What was your daily experience like versus now, just doing life? I mean, what are the differences between your daily routines?
Well, being on death row when I first got there, it was like, wow, how in the hell did I get here? And that was a everyday waking up, being there, and the atmosphere around you. But the guys that was there, actually showed love, and they was like, well, I was around a couple of older guys that actually knew and about my case, or the officers talking about me. Then I actually get there because they have TVs, they can actually watch it because they in that vicinity, so they get the news from Jacksonville. So I've seen it, and they were like, it was this one guy, he knows the law, and he was like, I researched your case. When I heard about you, I researched your case and looked and read it. And he said, how the hell did you get here? I said, well, that's what I want to know. And it's like, he said, well, I'm telling you this. You have the best chances in getting off death row, getting back to the street. Because what I read about your case, you shouldn't even been locked up. I said, I know this. I know this. He's like, well, there's 2 kind of people, those that do and those that do not. Which one are you going to be? I said, I'm going to be the one that do. He said, well, all this playing around and playing chess, that's good. But don't spend too much of your time doing it. You have to put in the work. Don't let your attorney put in the work for you, and you sitting there and don't know about your case. And so I said, well, thanks for the information. He said, when you need help, you stuck on something, you want to know something, come ask. Don't be scared. And from that point on, we ran, we did work. And here I am.
That's definitely good. As far as from you wake up, by the time you go to bed, what's the difference between your daily activities from when you were on death row to now, commuted to the life sentence? How much better is it now than it was before?
Now, people have asked me this, and so they look at me crazy when I say it. I said, if this is what having a life sentence was about, I'd have stayed on death row.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So they said, are you serious? I said, yes. Now, taking the perks away from death row, being the perk
Mm-hmm.
of a life sentence. I'll mix the two, where not being around a lot of people. So being around a lot of people, it was new to me because I never seen a lot of things moving at one time. So I was happy to be off the road, but at the same time, all this moving around and people stabbing each other, fight, arguing, and I have to deal with all that. So
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Definitely a lot of sense. I mean, in California, they're going through on San Quentin's death row. California, they've moved. I've known probably 30 or 40 people in San Quentin's death row, and they have transferred them to different facilities around California. And a lot of them now, I think it's called level 2, to where it's a whole new world, for them. Because some of these guys, they've been on there for decades on the row, and to now experience life, and in a whole different way. Most of them are pretty happy, from the differences. Like they can just the fact that they can have, food that's warm, not so cold when they get it, and move around a little bit. But, some aren't. Some are very similar to what you said, where their routine was so much like you were saying. You're not around, many people, if not anybody, maybe an hour outside on the yard. But some said it's just from the safer aspect of it, less dangerous. You don't have to worry about anything else. You're so structured. But it's a mix. I think most like it. As I said, we're a large group of people that I'm talking about, but very similar to what you said, though. Definitely a lot of people, so that makes sense.
and that makes a lot of sense.
Do the guards treat you differently there? Because some facilities, the guards can really help you out or can really break you down. Like they just want nothing but to lord it over you, constantly flipping your house over, constantly doing damage. And how is the guards at your facility? Do they treat you fairly there?
Well, let me back up. The last facility that I was at, they treated me like I was scum. And when I say they treated me bad, they treated me like, I was nothing, or they had a whole conversation in front of other inmates, or then, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Now, I granted it was other inmates that knew who I was and about my case. And but said, "Wait, man, I thought you was on death row." I said, "I was on death row." And he said, then a lot of people that's from Jacksonville was on the phone talking to their family and said, "Guess what I'm standing next to? I'm standing next to Durousseau. He's right here." He said, "No, he on death row." He said, "Man, I'm standing right next to him." And so when it get to the officers was like, they would talk about my case, or they refused to move me to. I was supposed to be put into a program, and the officer, she said she's not moving me. But the sergeant was like, "Well, what do you mean you're not gonna move him? He fits the program. But I had people that helped me. I had a captain. Hey, write your classification, officer. Ask them what all programs you qualify for. And when you get it, bring it back to me." And when that happened, I brought it back to her, and she said, "Now, this is your ammunition to fight with. You qualify everything on this institution, so nobody can stop you." And it was split down the middle to where you had the people that talk about me, then you had the ones that helped me. And it had its moments to where I want to snap or get mad, but then I had other people to pull me off that ledge to where, hey, not worth it. We haven't had a DR in going on 10 years, so why give them that joy, that satisfaction of getting in trouble to make you look even better? So I understood. But it has its moments.
Yeah. We've talked before about the facilities like in Norway and other countries where they promote, like the guards are skilled in communication. It's a reward-based system. In your time there and in your personal experience, the fear of punishment the fear of getting thrown in a hole, the fear of guards with their kind of authoritarian kind of mindset of punish, punish, punish. Do you think that has any deterrent on people for, you said you saw stabbings there, you saw a lot of violent crimes there. So do you think the threat of punishment actually works? Or do you think if that facility was more about reward based, like, hey, if you stay on good behavior for X amount of time, you're going to get better food, you're going to get more phone time, more visitation time, and you get video games and more movies, like really have a laid back structure. Do you think that would work better in a facility like yours, a reward based system, aside from like the fear of punishment? Or do you think it really doesn't, people won't be bothered either way by it?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Now they started. Well, I don't know if I told you, but they have a program where it's called Incentivize. It's a incentivized program to where the officers treat you with respect. They don't even call you inmate. They don't even call you. They just treat you like a human being. They call you sir, no sir, or
Oh wow.
they even get to the point where the food is better. You go to chow hall, they don't rush you. You can take as much time as you want. All they do is come in and count and leave out. You know the schedule of the hours that you eat. The door is open. You go in, come in as you please. All they ask is that you don't go to other dorms. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Do what you're supposed to. They treat you like with respect. They have like 2 or 3 TVs inside the dorm. They have video games. They have one TV for sports, one for movies, and another TV for whatever is on. And this is a incentivized camp. They have programs, school, class, whatever you want. Talk on the phone. Visitation starts from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and
Wow.
it's all day thing. So who would mess that up? Those are for the inmates that's tired of the drugs, gangs, and just want a different life. Just doing your time till it's time for you to go home. Or if you have a life sentence, now they're trying to start this program to where if you have a life sentence, you have the same things that they have, give you something to focus on to get your mind right for you. If things should change, then you should be able to get out of prison. So they started. So you had the mentality was, man, I got a life sentence. What I got to live for? I mean, you messing with me, I had a life sentence, so I wouldn't advise you messing with me. That's the mentality you had.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting better.
Wow.
And you have the camp that I'm at now. You have programs that's getting off the ground, and they trying to start it. And they also you always gonna have bad elements wherever you go, and they're trying to remove those elements from here to make it better and safer.
Wow.
A couple of weeks ago, you had a guy that was in the same dorm that I was. I just happened to go to another dorm, and that next the day that I left, that guy got killed. As he slept in his bed, the guy was high, out of his mind, on ice. Thought, this guy was talking about. Thought that he was out to get him, and stabbed that guy. And he went over and stabbed another guy. So, and it hurt because I knew the guy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you got to explain that to his family, and he was a short time. He only had about 2 years, a year and a half to go before he go home, and this is what he get stabbed while he's sleeping. So.
Wow. Definitely a shame. Well, I mean, I am glad to hear about the programs that are there. I mean, that's very encouraging. There's more and more facilities are doing it. It's just a hard sell to the public and politicians, people who have, committed crimes, violent offenses, to say you're going to treat them kindly.
Right.
Doesn't fly too well. What they don't realize is, especially those who are getting out, who do you want to come out of prison? Somebody who has been messed with the whole time, thrown in a hole. They went in for maybe, like, say, a robbery or stealing a car, and they come out like this horrible, violent offender because all the abuse and torture almost that they've been going through. do you want that guy to come out to be your neighbor, or somebody who now knows love and kindness and respect and treated with dignity? That's the person you want to come out of prison.
Right.
Somebody would have changed life,
Right.
but they don't understand that. Sometimes I swear it's all about money. The more people they can keep at that facility and come back, the more money they get for the state, the more money they get for that prison facility. But no, it's very encouraging to hear for sure. I'm definitely glad to hear that. Definitely for you, a long way from Beaumont, Texas, as they say. I think that's where you're born, right? In Beaumont, was it?
Actually, that's where I was born. And
Yeah.
by the time
And what was it like? How long did you live there? What was it like growing up for you?
by the time I was 6 months, I was in Los Angeles, California. So,
Oh, that quick. Okay.
that quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up from being there on up, and went to high school, went to junior high. My mom and my dad, they were married. Then they got a divorce, and my father was always in our lives, even though he may not have been in the same house. We seen him every weekend or every other weekend, or we can call him on the phone. And went to school. Mom was rough. She was real rough. She raised 3 boys, so I give her a medal. Every day was Mother's Day for her. She raised us, and certain things that we could not do, she wasn't allowed it. And got a couple of guys here when they hear that I'm from LA, and the gangs out there, You never was in a gang. I said, yeah, I was in Deborah Page gang, and I never heard of that gang. I said, yeah, you won't. That's my mom's gang. She didn't play.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. She sounds wonderful. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Now, when you were young, kind of growing up, obviously it's a harder, when you're surrounded by gang life in that style, as much as your mom kept your head on straight. Did you aspire to be anything when you grew up? Like little kids, like the hopes and dreams, and you had any future plans when you were younger, who you wanted to be? And what was that like, kind of growing up in that surrounding, trying to keep your mind right?
Well, growing up, I was more into sports.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I ran track in high school, played basketball, played baseball. I had a scholarship to go to I think it was Arizona to play baseball. No, run track.
Wow.
To run track. And when I was out of high school, I'm tired. I'm not going to school. I'm tired. So, and my little summer jobs I had, and that one of the supervisors like, what are y'all going to do with your life? And I decided to go into the military. That's what I did.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, in Germany, I think, right? Is that where you were stationed in Germany? Was it?
Well, I was stationed in Forest Hill, Oklahoma. That's where I did basic and AIT. And left there and went to Germany. Went from there to Fort Benning, Georgia. Back there I went to Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Gotcha. What was it like in Germany? Was that a whole? I mean, did they keep you like on a base? I don't know if you did get out to. I think you met your wife there, I believe.
Right.
But what was another country like for you? Was that a whole new experience? And did you see actual like any action military, or was it more about the training and as far as the service goes?
Well, it was more about the training. We went there. That's actually where I was stationed for 2 years. Well, 2.5 years. I was stationed in Germany. We were so far out that it required you to have a car. You had to have a car to go anywhere, to do anything.
Okay.
You had to have a car. And I was so lazy. I would always fail in getting my driver's license, because they wanted you to get your driver's license. You had to have a driver's license to drive the military vehicle, and I was not with it. I was when you got over there, you had to go to class for 2 weeks to learn their language and their customs and all that. So I said, I'm going to be over here for 2 years. I'll pick it up as I go. And that was so the teacher's like, I see one of you every time you come into this class that you just want to fly under the radar. I said, I'm going to be here for 2 years. I'll pick it up as I go. Trust me. I'll pick it up. And she said, no, you're going to do it now. And then she stayed on me. She stayed on me, behind me. And I had to learn it. So, and it was a fun experience. And the women and just going to the field because I was artillery. And when we go to the field, when we go to the field, we in the field for 2 months, 3 months, and we don't come out. When we come out, we may come out and we go right back in. And being in Germany, you have to abide by their rules. So because it was artillery, we can't shoot. It's a quiet time.
Okay.
So,
is anything you learned in the military? Something like when did you carry over to everyday life when you got out? Did you learn anything like skill wise or mentality wise? Or did kind of turn into a man, so to speak, or is it just kind of like something you did for a brief time?
Well,
and then really,
you're gonna go and have fun. Everyone in the military goes to have fun, to see and learn and experience new things. I did that, but
cool.
I went and got in courses and first aid because I was good at first aid, reading a map and weapons. That's what I was. I always paid attention to those things, and I made sure that I'm not gonna get lost, or if somebody needs first aid, I was gonna be the one to give it to them.
Sure. Was it an adjustment period when he came back to, as they say, civilian life from the military, or it wasn't much of a change for you back to, the normal life, so to speak?
Well, I believe in everybody should have standards, should have structure, and it was a big adjustment to see people doing things half-assed to where
I can see that, yeah.
do it right the first time, you won't have to do it again. And that's the way I'm set. I'm not particular on things, but I believe things should be done a certain way. Like when it comes to where you live. Even now, I help clean up the bathroom because I'm in an open bay dorm, and everybody uses the restroom. And I believe that it should be clean and should be kept clean because I'm in a dorm with 73 guys. Oh
yeah.
And right. Make that make sense to try to get these guys to do right. And hey man, you too hard on these guys, man. You can't keep going around saying little things and making them do things because I said this is a program dorm we in. We supposed to stay clean. So why are you doing it this way when it be done this way? If you do it right the first time, you won't have to do it the second time. Because we have inspections. Believe it or not, we do have inspections. The warden inspections come around. And I said, now all of a sudden y'all want to get up and clean, make your bed, do all this. Hell, you can't even do that right.
Oh, wow.
They said, man, you hard. You rough. I said, I'm even rough on my kids even from here. Because I want them to do what's right and do it right the first time. You don't have to go and do it again the second time.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Definitely makes sense as far as the structure and all that coming out. Which I've noticed a lot. Friends of mine have been in the military come out. You can definitely see, even the way they dress. If you go to their house, the way their bed is made. I don't think I've ever made my bed, but you go to their places, it's like so clean, so structured. You definitely see like an order during their day, how they have things structured out. So that makes perfect sense. Before we kind of transition into, your case itself, what was it like from the time you got out of the military up until the time that you were charged with these crimes? How was your life going? What kind of jobs did you have? I think it was you were a taxi driver from what I remember, reading about. But how was your life going up in the time you got charged with these crimes, or charged with the crimes themselves? Was it happy time, sad time, anger time, just normal everyday life? What was that from the military up until that time? How was your life going?
Well, my life was going good. You know, everything was good, and I came home. I had 2 kids from my wife, and we were good. And then when all this happened, you know, I'm sitting in jail fighting these charges. Then the media is ripping me apart. I mean,
You have 1 minute remaining.
it got to the point to, you know, wow, this is what it is. And the officers, and like I said, when I first got hit with these charges, I mean, I was like the scum of someone to shoot. I'm like, I can't keep sitting here trying to prove myself to someone to tell you, listen, all I know is I didn't do it. That's what it is, what it is. But the media is saying this. I don't want to hear what the media is saying. So I had to take that as saying the ground. I said, as it go on, I sat in that county jail almost five years. 5 years. And then after, well, they kept saying this about you. They keep saying this about you. But why is it taking so long? People that got arrested after me is gone before me.
Wow.
And that's what they had to learn. And I said, well, I tried to tell you, they losing grip on certain things that they're talking about.
Well, actually, let's just take a little step back. Yes, everything was going good after the military. You're living life, having a good time, and then these charges came up. When were you first notified about these charges? I mean, can you even explain what was going through your mind and what that day was like?
Well, when they actually brought me in, they brought me in, sat me down. Well, they arrested me for different stealing stolen property and violation of probation. And so when I called the guy that I had bought the DVD player from, and I said, hey, man, I specifically asked you, was this DVD player stolen? And you told me no. Oh, man. Well, they not going to be able to prove it. They just going to make you sit and they'll drop the charges. I said, man, no. Now I'm missing work. Now I had at this time I had a good job. I was working in a warehouse as a forklift driver, and full benefits, everything, and not to mention that I had got my wife to not quit her job and go to school full time for nursing. So I was the provider of the family. So by me missing work, it took time that put the strain on her. So I was like, well, that's needless to say, I got to sit here and wait for them to drop the charges. And now that's going to violate my probation. Man, hey, man, I apologize. That's on me. But I just needed some money. I wanted to get that off my hand. I said, man, you lied to me. So conversation ended there. That recording went to the state attorney. The state attorney never gave that call to my, they recorded to my attorney. They got it late. Well, got it late. Then when I fell on these charges, my attorneys came to me and said, hey, did your attorney ever that was representing you on that dealing stolen property ever tell you that it was being recorded and they knew about it, and they dropped the charges? So what they did was they forced me to take a deal on my violation of probation. If what got me arrested was a dealing stolen property, then I never violated my probation. So they made me plead out to it, so I took 8 months. But because I had took that and then I was on probation for so long, that covered the 8 months. So the computer was about to kick me out of jail. So they panicked, and then now all these murder charges fall on me.
Wow.
So I go to court. So you had a captain, she come to my door and she's, hey, you're a very important guy. I said, how am I important? She was like, well, no one came to talk to you and tell you what's going on. I said, no. And she said, well, get dressed. You have to go down to booking. I said, why I'm going to booking? Add-on charges. What add-on charges? So we get down there. They wouldn't let no correction officers fingerprint me. They had their own FDLE fingerprint analysis. They fingerprint me, and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, we'll tell you in a minute." That's when they told me I was being charged with 6 murders. I said, "Y'all
Wow.
damn mind 6 murders? Oh, who?" And they told me. I was like, "Y'all got to be kidding me."
Wow.
All right. So I wore it all the way up from I got arrested February 6th, 2003. From that time, from 2003 all the way up till trial. I go to trial, and it was a battle. I mean, my attorneys fought for me, and they didn't fight for me as they should have, but things started trying to. One girl they used her. Well, she said she hadn't seen anything, heard anything, and 2 weeks before my trial, she got arrested. Come to find out, she went in. She forged a doctor name, went into Walgreens and tried to get oxycodone, Oxycontin, and driving on suspended license. That's what they arrested her on. She flipped and told them she'll tell you whatever they need to know. And the girl lied out her teeth. That me and her ran right into each other as she was taking her trash out as she came home from church. You can't dispute that. Anybody that say, because my attorney gonna look like a real the bad guy going after somebody that said they just came home from church. That's what they saying. I was like, okay. All right.
Wow.
I had to take that and wear that. But, we can prove that she lied. We impeached her, and we could, to this day, none of my attorneys would work for me. So after I'm on death row, none of my attorneys would work for me. Because I came in, I pointed things out in my case that didn't sit right. I don't want you to look at it. So.
Yeah, and one of the more fascinating ones, Teresa Mack. Well, I think you said you knew her as far as, I think you gave her a ride or something like that. I think you admitted, hanging out with her or at least having sex with her once.
No.
Is that what you meant, or did you give her a ride one time, or what specifically was that? And then I want to get into detail about something about that trial that just blew me away of how they allowed something into evidence. But how did you meet her?
Well, going back to Teresa Mack, I met her in '99. My daughter had fell off her bike and she busted her head. So I ended up taking her to the hospital. Took her to the hospital. That's when I met Teresa, and her son was there, and my daughter was there, and we was actually a couple of minutes apart of leaving. And as she left first, and I was going to my car, and she was looking for something in her purse, and then she actually dropped her purse, and I helped her pick it up. And after she asked me where was I going, I said, well, I'm going towards Moncrief. And she was like, well, never mind. And I said, where you got to go? She said, the east side. And I was like, well, I'm fairly new, still new to Jacksonville. So I asked her, where's the east side? She said, off 8 Philip Randolph. I said, well, just show me where it's at, and I'll take you. She's like, well, it's not far from here. So I took her. And we're talking, and her other 2 kids were at her grandmother's. So we go to her grandmother's house, pick her kids up, and her grandmother, she introduced me to her grandmother, and grandmother seen that I had a wedding ring on, and she kind of yelled at her. And so, well, I was being persistent, and I asked her, I said, well, listen, you grown, I'm grown, and it's not like that I'm trying to talk to you, but we can. So we exchanged numbers. And nobody in her family knew that me and her was messing around, or nobody knew. So when I would call, and the only way to get in her apartment is, either she comes down and lets you up. That's the only way. Or if I have a key. So whenever I would come over, I would always call her and let her know, hey, I'm come by, it's all right with you. And when I get there, I would ring her doorbell, and she would either look out her kitchen window down, and you wouldn't even know to look up to see if she looking. She wants to be bothered.
Yeah.
But she would come down and she would send her oldest son, which I think he was like about maybe 4 or 5, and he would come down and let me in, and we would race up the stairs. And I would go over there and we'd talk and and then I would leave. But this particular day, I had got a speeding ticket and I needed to get an extension. Well, I didn't know if Florida gave an extension, so I went and I asked for an extension. Well, you go to a little tax agency collectors, and they do DMV work. But to get an extension, I actually have to go to the court, so that's what put me at the court. But we went there, and she was on hard time, and she never asked me for anything. That was the first time she ever asked me for anything, and I gave it to her. And I had went downstairs. It was a little corner, little neighborhood store, and I had bought something and got changed for $50. I gave her $30, and she said, "Well, hey, I'm gonna give it back to you." I said, "No, don't worry about it. You ain't never asked me for anything, so I don't mind giving you." So after I left, we had sex and I left, the 2 state witnesses even said that they seen me leave. I left before he got on the bus. And when you look at her telephone records, you can see she's making calls. She made 2 outgoing calls and she received incoming calls. That proved that she was alive when I left. And when I left, the state witnesses said he seen me leave because the way he had to look for the bus is where my car was in that general direction. Gotcha. And I left. So that proved that she was alive when I left. And I went to the courthouse. When I took the stand, the prosecutor took that paper of me being in the courthouse, and he was going to put it up there, and his boss stopped him. Now, I was mad at my attorney because they didn't recross, and get that paper and put it up there to show the jury. Yeah. And that was my alibi. I can't be in 2 places at one time. And when I took the stand, I told the judge, I said, "Wait a minute. The prosecutor just said I was smart and meticulous. Because my fingerprints do not show up in her house. I had on gloves." And I'm sitting there, I turned to the judge, I said, "Well, wait a minute. If I'm smart and meticulous and to conceal my fingerprints at a crime scene, then what the hell am I going to have open sex with a woman and leave a part of me inside of her and then turn around and kill her? That make sense to me."
Yeah.
So
and I think too, and especially the media. I mean, there's been a few documentaries about you, and they don't see anything about that, of course. None of that evidence was in there. All it was is you're a taxi cab driver. You picked her up, thought you were cute. You guys, thought she was cute. Went to her house, had sex with her, killed her, and left. None of the backstory about it. None of the evidence that a court document would have time-stamped where you were specifically, let alone the phone records. And something else in that case that I never even heard of this, and correct me if I have it wrong, but the state did something that usually isn't allowed in court, something called collateral crime evidence.
Collateral crime evidence. Well, it's a thing in Florida called, it's in every state it just has a different name. So what collateral crime evidence is called the Williams Rule. The Williams Rule is, let me see if I get this right. It is called similar fact evidence. They can take one case, and then they can bring other things in to show a pattern. And that's what they tried to do to me. And my attorney at the time, we had the Williams Rule hearing. The judge stopped the prosecutor and said, "I don't think you'll be able to prove anything against him when he goes to trial, but I'm going to allow you the chance to do it." My attorney jumped up and she objected. She said, Your Honor, if you allow this evidence in, you allow them to do the Williams rule, the jury's going to automatically find him guilty,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to think he did it, and it's going to be open and shut. He said, well, that's for the jury to see, to recommend. And she said, well, this is going to be one hell of a trial. And it was.
No. And to be clear, I mean, the Williams rule or this collateral crime evidence, what it specifically is, I believe, is you have your case, which you're in the middle of.
Correct.
And they are allowed to use, quote unquote, evidence from other cases, other crimes that you specifically have not been convicted of. To be clear, that's nothing you've been convicted of in a court. But since those cases, those other murderers were similar to the way that that Mack died, as far as strangulation and things like that, they could use the evidence in cases that you're not convicted of against you.
Yeah.
Because they were similar.
Similar.
Nothing that you were convicted of. Not like, hey, he killed these 3 other people this way, so of course he killed her this way. I mean, that's one thing. But these other cases that they were using, you weren't convicted of.
Correct.
They just said, oh, but it's so similar that he must have done it because it's so similar. You're not even convicted of this, but that is, if I'm correct, that's what the truth is, right? Like you weren't convicted of those crimes at all, but they used that evidence in those cases against you in this case.
Correct.
Gotcha. That's mind-blowing.
Well, to take it a step further, the only way you can use the Williams rule, you have to have a previous conviction, or you had a confession. You have neither in my case. What they not gonna tell you is, yes, they tested my DNA against the DNA evidence that was found at the crime scene. And the only way that can be to put it to light is you also have to find other men that left that DNA at the crime scene. They won't tell you that. So, so my DNA is not the only one in question. Yes, I was having sex with other women, and that's why the other 2 collateral crimes came in. They came and because, he had sex with him. He must have did it. Okay, well, now that you tested that DNA, when I get the police report and I'm looking at the crime, the FDLE report, it says in a Kilpatrick case, there were 2 known DNAs, one being that of the victim and one that being of an unknown male suspect, not of that of Paul Durousseau. And I said, are you kidding me? But they
fingerprints too.
And they still charged me.
And as far as her case, and I want to touch on her case too, but just to finish up with Mac, that you basically had 3 pieces of evidence against you, one, so to speak. One was your DNA.
Correct.
You had sex and you admitted that. 2, you were with her at or around the time of her death.
Correct.
And the collateral crime evidence. So if we take the collateral crime evidence out, all we have is you had sex with a person and you were around her at or around the day or a day before, day after of her murder, which means that's a very hard sell for anybody to be charged guilty of a crime because you were around her, which I'm sure numerous people were, and the fact that you had sex with her.
Well,
but if you take the collateral crime out, there's not much of a case.
And it goes higher than this, where the Florida Supreme Court justices, 2 of them were on my side, and they're female.
Oh.
And they said they told a prosecutor at the time of that hearing, if you separate the case that puts him on death row, what evidence do you have? They said, Your Honor, we need that. She said, listen to my question. If you remove the evidence, the two collateral crime evidence from him, what evidence do you have putting him on death row, meaning the Mack case? What evidence do you have? They said, we have nothing.
course.
She said my point exactly. So
Mhm.
she said in law, as being a prosecutor, attorney, they're saying things about him that are not true, and this is inflaming. That makes everything look so messed up, so construed that we don't know what's what and who is who. Now,
Mhm.
do you think he would actually sit down with you and tell you what he knows? Because these cases are cold cases. They're
Mhm.
cold case murders. And when I lost the Mack case, they actually brought me back to court. And I asked my attorney, what am I doing over here? And she said, well, they're going to announce that they're dropping the murder charges, the remaining 5
Oh.
murders on you. I said,
Mhm.
really? You took me to trial and used 2 against me to get a conviction. And now you're going to drop those murder charges?
Wow.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
Really? So it was a hard sell, and people, and no one ever heard me talk because I never gave an interview.
Mhm.
The only time they ever heard me talk is when I got on the stand. And when I
Sure.
tell you, the courtroom was empty, but when it was time for me to take that stand, it was like people standing along the wall, in the middle of the aisle. I mean, it was
Wow.
packed to capacity. They had to bring extra
Mhm.
bailiffs in there because they didn't know what was going to happen.
Wow.
I was floored, but I told the truth, and
Mhm.
and that's what it was. I was fighting for my life, and
Of course.
I was on the stand for 90 minutes. The prosecutor couldn't do anything with me for 20 minutes. He couldn't
Wow.
shake me. He couldn't do anything. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting here telling you everything that I know, and it was just like, then I see stories about me when I'm on death row. I seen one story, and the guy say this is unusual in Florida, and especially out of Jacksonville, for the state to drop 5 murder charges on a guy. That's unheard of.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. Because other evidence, I mean, the papers you sent me, I guess you Laura typed up, or the legal papers, I think case of Drake, case of Peake, and a case of Lale, where they tried to do the same thing and it wasn't allowed.
right.
They said, they weren't allowed in those cases. So it does have precedence, because the dissimilarities, exceeded the similarities. And a couple of things that you said. One thing is important that, Mr. Meticulous, Mr. Military guy, Mr. Order, why would you have sex with somebody, leave your DNA in, and wear gloves? I mean, that just, common sense would be not this guy. I mean, if the plan was to do that, then, unless you had sex and then had a random, hey, now after I have sex with her, my DNA's in there. Hey, let me go put a pair of gloves on now. It's a little late for that. I mean, that's just common sense. And with the other case, the Kilpatrick case, that I believe, now, was it her case or Matt case, where another suspect that I was reading had what looked like bite marks and scratches on him?
That's in the Matt case.
That was the Mac too. Okay, so bite marks and scratches on him was, obviously not charged.
And they took his word. Never did any investigation on that. The girlfriend said, "Listen, the police never came and asked me did I do that to him. He came to me and said because the family, the brother was on the rampage of the victim, and it got back to them that he had bite and scratch marks on him, and he was actually looking for her. He lied about knowing her. I did. He lied about having sex with her. He lied about even knowing her.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I did the same thing. So,
Wow.
I
And even in the Kilpatrick case, I mean, there's other DNA samples that were there. There were fingerprints, and where was it at? It was, I think, a fingerprint somewhere on a heater or something like that, and another fingerprint right above her body where she died. Another fingerprint there.
You're talking about the McAllister case.
Is that what it is? Okay, I gotcha. And it's just amazing so much other evidence is in there. It's just mind blowing for sure. But the main thing is that you said is why would I put a pair of gloves on and leave my DNA? I mean, that's pretty eye opening for sure.
They overlooked all that just to get a conviction, just to
And then drop the other ones.
throw me away and think it was over.
You know, there was so much more evidence in your case, or maybe so much more your lawyers could have done. The evidence that shouldn't have been in there. How is your mindset now? I mean, do you allow a part of your mind to say, I might not ever get out? Or do you have to keep the mentality of, we got to keep appealing and, fight for a new trial? I mean, how does your mindset work with all this now?
Well, it crosses my mind, but I just don't go to that negative side because I know what the evidence is, and I know what my innocence is, and I just stay focused. I stay focused, and I don't go to that. Well, I'm gonna hopefully get out. I just don't know when. I just try to stay focused and stay into the positive.
Is there anything next? Like, what's next in line as far as any kind of hearings, or what have you and your lawyer? What do you have next? What is the next step for you?
Well, because I'm in the courts right now, I'm just waiting for them to make a ruling. The only three things they can't do, they can reverse and let me go all together, or they can say, okay, reduce this life sentence to lower some of my time, or they can give me a new trial altogether.
Oh, wow.
And that's something they don't want.
Yeah.
That's something they don't want. And one thing, the judge, when I was in trial, and the judge stopped my trial, and the first judge allowed this in. He allowed all this stuff in. Then he couldn't hold my case, so another judge came in. And what he said was, at my trial, he stopped it and sent the jury out. And he told the prosecutor to come up there and my attorneys come up there, and he said, this is not Williamsville evidence. And I don't know how the previous judge allowed this in. And he said, y'all go back to the table. He said, Mr. Durousseau, there's nothing that I can do. I can't undo what a previous judge did. But what I can do, I can make the playing field even. He said, all your previous motions that you filed to the court, all those are now approved. They're granted.
Wow.
And looked at the state and said, when your witness get on the stand, you better get to the point, and you better make it quick. And
wow.
I was like, okay. And he held my case from 2008 all the way to the time that I went to my resentencing in 2021. He held it. And he made sure nobody else got my case and no one can else do nothing. And he held it. Because he knew what was right.
Yeah.
He said he may not like you. He may not like you as a person, but he's going by strictly what the law says and what the books say.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
Wow.
So I had to give it to him on that.
Mm-hmm. Now, do we have a time frame of what type of ruling and how long it's going to take, or they give you a time frame, or you just have to? It's like a waiting game.
It's one of those waiting games. Because I have a life sentence. The courts, they can hold it up to 2, 3, 4 years.
Wow.
It could be longer. So I just play the waiting game. That's it.
You would figure,
you
figure that would be the first on the docket. Those who have the worst sentence with the longest amount of time versus somebody who might be looking at 2 or 3 years, in a court case or something minor. You figure that would be first, not a waiting game. If this guy truly is not guilty, we want to get him out now. But.
But it's always been like that. And I always try to, because my daughters, they always ask me that when you going back to court. I said, listen, it's just one of those waiting things. You can't rush them because you don't want to rush them and make them do what you don't want them to do. I mean, just be patient and let them do what they're supposed to do. And because every day you hear that somebody's been in prison when they shouldn't have, or they've done so much time that they shouldn't have. And I don't want to rush them I don't want them to feel the pressure of the public, the last shot, because that's what they did with me in from the start. The media ran my case so much that people like, they hated me.
Yeah.
And since I've been here, I put in for jobs, and the laundry star came, and the way she was looking at me, I said, "Well, Star, I put in a request form to come work for you. I'm listed as a laundry to work in laundry."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Well, what's your name?" I said, "Durousseau." She said, "Paul Durousseau,
Oh, no.
out of Jacksonville?" I said, and I'm looking at her like, and she just giving me that look.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, throughout the weeks or the days, the month, I'm seeing her. I say, "So I glance at my request form," and she act like she don't hear me. And then one particular morning, we went to breakfast, and she say, I had said something to her, and she stopped and she said something to me. And one guy's like, "Well, man, you ought to be lucky because she usually don't talk to nobody."
Yeah.
But then one day I caught her at the gate, and I said, "Lord, about me coming to work for you." And to be straight up, "Oh, you're not coming to work for me. I don't want you coming to work for me." I said, "That's all you had to say."
Yeah.
I'm one of them, yes, no, don't, maybe, don't, just shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah.
I already knew what she was talking about when she said it from months ago. But it is what it is. This is the thing that I get of people prejudging me when they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Or they read the internet, or they hear somebody say something and they take their word as gold. But I will say this. As long as I've been off death row, been having a life sentence, no one has ever tried me. No one has ever came up to me and say, "Hey, that's such and so right there," or "That's him. He the one who did that." Nah, nah, nah.
Mm-hmm.
I've never got any of that. If
Wow.
anything, they want to know, what did they do in your case? And it's guys that use case laws, my case laws in the courts to get a lower sentence,
Mm-hmm.
or they could be legally sentenced.
Wow.
And they use they ask me.
Wow.
And if people was paying attention, Casey Anthony used her attorneys referenced my case.
Oh, they did. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They used the reference that the Florida Supreme Court ruled on my case, and that she used it.
Oh, that's wild.
So
I mean, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, I've had many people on the podcast and people I've talked to over the years who are high profile. Most of the time, they've been attacked. They have a target on their back. They have to go in more of a secluded area or more of the protective custody part of the prison. But it's amazing. I mean, it's so profitable. I mean, have you seen or heard like the documentaries about you and everything that's been written about you? Have you followed that over the years, or you just kind of just put it when you hear like, "Oh, it's the Jacksonville Strangler here," he's in our prison facility. Did you get? You said you don't really get that too much in prison, but have you gotten, from producers and journalists reaching out to you over the years to try to get information from you, so to speak, or you just kind of avoid all that stuff?
Well, I've gotten letters, I've gotten emails, I've gotten it all. Professors writing me, sending me emails, or they want to study me and come talk to me. I even had a captain at one of the last two institutions walk past me with a sergeant and say, "Oh, I know everything about him. When I had to take my class and we did this and I picked your name out of a hat." I said, "What do you possibly know about me?"
Yeah.
"Oh, that you was in Germany, you was in the military, you married, you have 2 kids, and da-da-da." I said, "Really?" And I said, "Now, this is off the record. I mean, we off the record. We just talking as men, right?" It's like, "Oh, yeah. I said, "Now, listen. If I was to grade you on that paper that you did, you would fail."
Yeah.
Yes, I was in the military. Yes, I was married. No, I do not have 2 kids. I have 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's stuff that you can find on the internet, and people are just gonna say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And for me to say something, they would actually put stuff out there and to lure me out to say, oh no, this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
No, I said no, we're not playing that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Listen, I told him, listen, whatever paperwork you did on me, you got that stuff off the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's where you got that from. You're getting it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, it usually limits itself, like the Wikipedia pages, as it's called. You usually get a paragraph or 2 paragraphs worth of information, and they'll make a documentary off of that. You know, because realistically, they don't want to get to know somebody. You know, they want the blood and guts of everything because that's what sells. In the true crime genre, where we live in now, you know, they don't really always want the truth. You know, they just want to make a good movie. The spookier, the better, so to speak. It was amazing. That's why I offer my platform to a lot of people. They're expecting people like yourself who's been charged with something, to even the people who admit it, what they do and what they have done in the past. They expect them to be, you know, they can't hold a sentence. They live under a rock. They live in caves. You know, they can articulate themselves perfectly fine. You know, if they take the time to really get to know somebody, not just to poke and prod to get to know them. It's not who they thought they were, let alone those who are convicted of something they haven't done. It's a whole different story. When we talk a little bit about faith as a Christian. When did that come into your life? Is that something in prison you started studying a little bit more? Is that something you carried with you your whole life?
No, that's something I was instilled as a little kid growing up and going to church with my mom. She made sure we went to church. She knew who God was, who Jesus Christ was, and you know, going to church. And she's God-fearing woman. So
nice.
when she say jump, and on Sundays you going to church. That's how it was. You didn't have a choice. So until we got even when I was in the military, you know, I used to go to church service. You know, captain, you know, have chaplain. He'd have his little church service, and I would go.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was on the street, then I went to church.
Nice.
And even dealing with this case, and they used to go to prisons and talk to inmates, and my ex-wife used to tell me, I didn't like what the pastor said, and you have to get background checks when you go to you need y'all to fill them out, and as long as you ain't no serial killer and all this shooting, he was shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, I said, wow, huh? That's how they think of me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Going by what somebody else said. And I always try to, I educate people. You know, you're talking about things that you hear, and I'd rather you come and ask than assume things.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to tell you none of your business, or I tell you.
Yeah.
And they shocked that, you know, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them try to be funny with it, and, you know, I just don't feed into it. But then if the opportunity arises, and, you know, I'm going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had the assistant warden say, I know who you are. I said, you do? Well, I know who you are. You're a wise guy. I said, no, I'm not being a wise guy. Just you saying this in front of other inmates, and you making it hostile for me.
Yeah.
Because now they want to know what you're talking about. Now I have to explain this, and you making it to where, you know, it's not safe. Because if somebody ever take a shot at me, it's going to be bad for them.
Yeah. And you said most of your time there, you really haven't too many incidents yourself, or said no one really came after you, or you said pretty much a clean record, you know, for at least the last 10 some years or so, right? Not even a little right up. Pretty much a model prisoner there.
Well, that's what they say. They say, wow, you haven't had a DR in going on 10 years. I say, yeah, I stay out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I know when to act and when not to, but, you know. Yeah. I just don't let anybody disrespect me. If you want respect, respect is due.
Yeah.
So I respect you, you respect me, and that's it.
Yeah. Now, let's say, the case comes back up, whether they reduce your sentence, whether they let you go, one way or another. When you get out, what are some things that you've missed the most? I'm sure there's countless things, obviously, that you missed. But when you get out, like the first few days or a week, once you get on your feet, you got a roof over your head, and once you have that, what do you think are one of the first few things that you really missed, you really want to do more than anything else to really, really catch up on? Obviously, friends and family, of course, but like things that you miss, whether you're going somewhere, eating something. What do you think the first week looks like for you?
Just sitting back, watching all the movies that I possibly can that I missed. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
And just eating. If I can just eat everything and watch TV at the same time, I will be happy.
What are some of the foods you miss the most? Not to get you hungry, but what are some of the things you miss the most?
McDonald's fries.
Oh,
I see that on TV a lot, where they have this little thing where these commercials don't promote food products, and I said, "Wow, really?"
yeah.
So fast food. I would love to have an In-N-Out burger.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's definitely good. And I'm sure.
Fries,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
some fries, or just going to a Mexican restaurant and just pigging out.
Oh, yeah. Or going to see a Niners game. Go see a football.
Going to see a Niners game.
Yeah. Maybe we'll be doing a little better. I was surprised my Eagles are doing pretty good. I thought that they're off to a little shaky start. I'm like, I don't know, but they're getting a little win streak going. They haven't been doing too bad.
They have to play the Rams today.
Is that what it is today? Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm all the Philly sport teams that I follow, but not diehard. So I usually catch up the next day or the following day. I'll catch it on a replay and find out who won. But did your Niners play today?
Right, they play Green Bay.
Had they played yet, or they didn't play yet?
No, they haven't played yet. They play at 4:00.
Oh, okay. How's Green Bay? Are they any good?
They struggle with Chicago, and Chicago got that rookie quarterback. So.
So they got a chance then. Basically, your team got a chance today.
Yeah, we have a chance.
Yeah, it's probably really my third favorite team, because I have so many friends in California. They're all Niners fans. They've always been. I used to hate the Niners. Going off topic a little bit, I was always a Philadelphia fan. But when I was a kid, my first favorite team I saw was the Bengals because of the uniform. They got these cool uniforms. Well, the first game I saw was them in a Super Bowl with the 49ers, and 49ers beat them. So I'm like, the second game I remember seeing is the second time they played in the Super Bowl, and the Niners beat them with Montana and Joe Montana. So I hated the Niners. But over the years, I have a little soft spot. So I still like the Bengals as my number 2. But now, actually, my number 3 team will be the Niners, just because I got so many friends in California. They'll love that team. So I'm always rooting for them. So you got another fan rooting for you behind you. And so listen, I appreciate taking the time, to come onto the podcast and talk with us and let everybody know, and opening up. I appreciate opening up about, your past and your childhood, growing up, and some of those things too, which I'm sure not many people, they don't read that in the documentary. They don't read that in news articles, all the positive things. So I'd like to keep things positive here. Is there anything else that you want anybody to know, or anything about your case or your life, or anything you have going on that, as we close up, anything else that you want to say?
Well, one thing I will say, even though I was married, my ex-wife, I loved her, and I was just a guy out there in the world just doing what I wanted to do, and that's cheating, having sex with women. But my daughter there tell you, said, "Daddy, you was a male hoe. That's all you was. You was just a hoe." And I say, "Hey, I take that. It's not a sign of honor. It's just I was just," and I have to explain this to them. Mm-hmm. All your sisters and all y'all separated in close in age, so But I'm a good guy. Mm-hmm. I just have my faults at times. I'm human.
Yeah, we all are.
But in no way that I would ever violate a woman to where I would impose myself on her. Mm-hmm. That'll never happen. So, I get the looks, I get it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to know something, ask me, or sometimes, I've since this happened, I've not been in a relationship with a woman or even come close. I get, women email me and when they find out on that, when I say I'm innocent, they haul ass quick.
Mm.
It's like they want that type person. I said, no, it's not me.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely true.
I'm not that person you're looking for.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing that there are women who are looking for that. Which is wild. A lot of them follow my podcast and reach out to a lot of the men who are incarcerated around the country. But I say that's their thing. That's their thing. But no, I'm glad again we ended on a positive note. And no, again, really appreciate the time you coming on. And as I said, we've known each other for a while, and I'll probably talk to you later on tonight or tomorrow in the email land. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Conversation with Paul Durousseau. Now, his facilities allowed half-hour conversations, so there's a little bit of editing that you probably figured out was going on. So you don't want to hear me hanging up and calling people back and all that stuff. So I edited a little bit. So 3 phone calls, kind of now we're down to 1. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was eye-opening. It really gives people the opportunity. One, I feel just honored in a sense, as crazy as that sounds, because I talked to convicted serial killers and suspected serial killers, that some of these men and women like Paul has really never spoken publicly before. Yet he felt comfortable enough because we've been talking to each other, for probably a few years, I guess now. It's been a long time. They trusted me enough to come on to the program. Even if you don't believe the evidence, even if you don't believe him, at least you're getting an insight to one, prison life, one, inside the mind of somebody who's been accused of, some pretty heinous things. You kind of get to hear from them because as we talked, a lot of documentaries that made about him and many people I have on the show, a lot of it's just not true. A lot of the facts aren't true. Yes, it might be, okay, yes, they murdered this person on this day, this way, but the motivation, everything behind it, very few serial killers have actually came out and publicly talked about their motivation behind everything. You have Edward Kemper. Edward Kemper does that a lot, or did that a lot. He's not really speaking to anybody now. Jeffrey Dahmer came out and it was very open. But for the most part, we don't really hear from them too much, whether it be talking about their innocence, talking about why they did what they did, childhood background, upbringing, all that combined. So I feel blessed to have this kind of platform where I've built relationships. I can't even talk today. Relationships up. My mouth is so dry from that we had to talk for so long on the phone. Some recorded, some wasn't recorded. Well, there you have it. My interview with Paul Durousseau. Now, we've known each other for many years. He was adamant about not coming on the podcast for a long time, but he changed his mind recently. I guess sometimes it's just a matter of building up trust because some of these men and women like Paul, who I've talked to, have never spoken publicly before, especially not about their case. So in a sense, I feel honored. I feel blessed that they trust me enough. They're not going to be like, well, what about this? What about that? They wanted to come on and talk about his innocence, and that's what we're going to talk about. Whether you believe him or not believe him, I'll leave that up to the listener or the viewer watching on YouTube. You can make your own opinions about that. But you got to admit, there were some things about the case that shouldn't have been allowed in. Numerous people. We're going to have hopefully David Carpenter on. Same thing. A lot of things about his case that were just shady. Shadiness going on in that case. And plus, we get to hear from somebody who they are as a person. What happened with their background, their mindset, what they were thinking throughout life. So it gives you an insight of who they are. Because a lot of the articles and documentaries made about these men and women, especially about Paul, there's 2 or 3 documentaries about him. And I'm sure a lot of TV shows were based upon his case. But, do they interview him? Does he trust them enough to open up to say, hey, this is what really went on? Usually not. So that's why I have the platform. Well, you believe somebody, not believe somebody. This is their platform to explain themselves. And you really get the truth out there, what they want you to hear, and learn more about them as a person. And so that's what my platform is. That's why it's called The Lighter Side. You really get that information out there to everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. We have a lot more stuff coming up in the coming weeks, in the coming months. And until next time, as always, see ya.